stuff going on. And so when I heard that,
Oh, you mean the word confidential?
yes.
That's a legal requirement. We're trying to be careful. We include these words even though we're not trying to be professional, Tom, okay? We are dealing with what by law are defined as psychological principles, okay? And the law requires that the use of psychological principles be operated by licensed people, okay? This part of that requirement is that if something is, for example, engaged in a supervisory way about that activity, it has to be confidential. It cannot be discussed outside that discussion by law, by the application of psychological principles. That's a code word. Okay, if you that was kind of a secrecy thing. That's not what we're here to share. All that we're doing, we are actually sharing what we're doing and how we're thinking, how we're considering this, whatever is relevant around that. So, in case your alarm bell went off, to reassure you, that's a legal requirement that if we do supervision of these guys running it, not because it's professional, we're saying it's not a professional program, but we're trying to protect our asses just in case, because this is legally controlled by the state. All this, even though it looks real innocuous, what we're describing all these documents we've given to you, believe it or not, there are various agencies of the state that monitor all these things, whether or not we want to be monitored. I'm damn serious, and this has actually been very carefully shaped to try and make it sound like what we would like to do under those rules. And that's an example. That often we had to put that word in there on purpose to say that, because we want to have the opportunity for the four persons who are facilitating this intimate activity, okay, to be able to get together, okay, and process that intimate activity, vis-a-vis their concerns about that, but in a confidential way, meaning whatever is said there cannot be shared outside of to protect the confidences of the trainees. Okay? So that's the kind of confidentiality we're talking about. Does that address your question?
No, I had a feeling that's what it was, but it was it hit me the wrong way because of what you had said. So
Sure.
I wanted clarity.
No, absolutely. Please, any questions? If anything seems contradictory, please. That's one reason we're up here. It's quite fine, Tom. Thanks for sharing that you had some feelings about bringing that up too. I always want to invite you to try and feel like you can be three-dimensional here, because this is a place where we can try and practice that. Because outside of here, as you know, everything's so pro forma and controlled and dominant and so on. We get this opportunity here to be more fully hanging out. So thank you very much, Tom. Okay, other reactions, questions?
Yeah,
One name, please.
Wendell. I was going to say, on this whole issue of confidentiality, that there is a way in the Institute where it hasn't been legally required, but I've respected a certain kind of confidentiality with people when I was processing their shadow material in a small group, with Chris, with Ali. But what we worked out was a way of people bringing this material out into the public. Chris did it by getting up in the group and saying, I have these particular issues that I've been having to struggle with, around wanting to leave people or hurt the Institute or things like that. Once he talked about that, it was no longer confidential, because he had made it a group process that everyone could discuss. And I think that that's within the Institute, there's always room for a person who's working confidentially in a small group who wants to work in a more complicated way to get up in front of the group and say, when I was in training, I was resistant, or I was mean, or I was angry. Then it becomes a public thing that can be discussed. But it's been done sort of by the permission of the person involved, rather than sort of forcing them, in some sort of group process.
That's an interesting point too, as well. How do people be real about each other's stuff, and yet not be just breaching confidences with others who have not been exposed to that?
But I think there will be room for people in the training. I've been thinking about it, trying to think with the legal sort of side of it. That there is room for anyone in the training program who wants to open up their process in the way that Ali's done in a real heroic way at times, tried to get up there and stand up for his shit and admit it to people. So and that's something we'll be working with.
Yes.
That's what distinguishes us, I think, still from other groups. In a way that we are trying to make this stuff public, even though there is still some confidentiality.
And it's challenging. It's really challenging to do this. But how odd and unusual, but important that be so. That it's just like we pretend like there's no sewers. We pretend there's no toilets. Have you ever seen a movie where someone took a shit?
Until you get to the ocean.
that, but we're talking about people's dirty laundry psychologically, right? It's there all the time, right? But we all play this game, everyone's playing this game, and supposedly because unless you're that way, we couldn't have an organized system. Right? If people could just be real, somehow it wouldn't work, and I said, just that's a big fat lie. That's a lie that doesn't allow people to become more mature. It keeps them as dependent infants. Our training program, indeed our whole institute, is a collective attempt. Homos, in my opinion, are really can be very good at getting at this kind of stuff because of the lack of more severe loyalty from being breederistic-minded. If given a chance, the chance being, this is a terrible problem of internalized homophobia. Terrible, terrible. It's not been dealt with because a person becomes gay identified or comes out or gains a gay life or even becomes self-awarely self-accepting. It's only the tip of the iceberg in every damn case. In every damn case. In other words, I charge our gay liberation movement with a massive hypocrisy in this area, amongst others, in this area of not seriously addressing that if you become gay, accepting that that's what it means to become gay. Rather than that's the start of becoming gay. The mere start of becoming gay. It's outrageous how cheaply our movement has sold out what it means to be homosexual. How cheaply and trivially. It's constantly selling that out. And to counteract that is, again, to have to face the gay shadow. The terrible thing to have to not get around, doing hand around this problem because of how terrible human violence has been in this area. But impossible to avoid if one wishes better freedom. So, okay, further reactions? We got some more time. I want to encourage this.
I'm Kellum, and I want to participate. I have a strong urge to participate here, and I'm also feeling very nervous, and I have this sort of inner attack going on that I'm going to be stupid or not really participate in any sort of meaningful way, so I want to out that. But even in light of that, I still want to try. And I think what I really want to do is try to out my own violence. I've done this in the intermediate group level around my own feelings and my own violent competition that comes up around this beginning of the advanced training program. Because when I first heard about it, I practically in my mind sort of volunteered, pick me. And when I wasn't included in that first group, I had a pretty violent inner reaction, and I think to some extent external violent reaction as well. And I've been struggling with that over the past few months, and so that was coming up for me again here tonight. Although I really intentionally I wanted to come in in a state of mind of support and love, maybe even and caring for the Institute and for the gay spiritedness that I feel is coming alive in a more sort of organized, focused way. And yet, I struggle on the other hand with feeling that competition, that one up, one down. I'm one down because I wasn't included in the initial group. However, something that did occur to me, I don't think this is really operationally true, but it occurred to me as a potential reframe that could sort of settle me back somewhere in a kind of a grounded, embodied place. As you were speaking, I just jotted down, what if it's possible that I shouldn't be part of the Training Institute? What if my own violence really warrants exclusion from something that has a chance of being transformative for so many people that I could just smother with my own violence? And again, I don't think that's the case, except in potentia. But I want to put that out there as a way to try to, I guess, just acknowledge my own violence in this process. And also, too, on the other side of it, I think part of the draw for me is this idea that, I forget which document it was, but the talk was around the pre-candidate will already have been involved in meaningful, I can't remember all of the words, but meaningful activities towards, I would say, gay self-actualization. And what that sparked in me, and I just jotted down here, is I've been waiting for permission to self-initiate. as if that's what the Institute could offer me, is permission to self-initiate. And then I just tried to relate that back to my own trauma and tried to say, so, you know, how do I have any concept of self-initiation growing up in this violent heterosexist family I did, where I have a father, you know, who's there to love? Who's there to be loved by when I have a father who is, you know, for all intents and purposes, a sociopath to some extent, and a mother who's so narcissistic but injured and covertly narcissistic and acts out her own borderline bullshit in these really insidious, subtle ways. So I wanted to put that out there as just a way of trying to struggle here, and also just to continue offering my energy and support to what's being undertaken here.
Wow. Huh. Thanks for sharing that, Kellen. That must have been challenging to speak up about that stuff. Huh? Wow.
As much as is in me, I don't want to fall back into this sort of, what feels to me this heteronormative, especially with my family, my southern traumatized family flavor of relating. I want to be out of it. So
you're welcome. Thanks for speaking up about it. Huh. Wow. That was moving. I can feel that one. There's actually a set of interlocking matters. I notice you guys nodding your heads over here. Do either of you care to share any reactions to that comment I've shared? I'm putting them on the spot, so.
Well, actually, I really appreciate how you're trying to take a bigger view than your own narcissistic needs around there's something bigger here than any of us individuals, and in that sense, it's all contingent, it's all experimental for all of us. And I think that to the extent that I appreciate how you're modeling that struggle around, what are my needs and what are the Institute's needs? And those don't necessarily line up for any individual. That it depends on where any person is at any given moment. I mean, I'm struggling, I'm sure you can all see me struggling tonight around being embodied and being present in the moment. So how humiliating that after 2 decades of real, total commitment, that I'm still struggling around that myself. So in that sense, I think there's a way I see the training program as we're all in training. So there's different levels wherever any person is. So.
Wow. Okay.
I thought it was really cool that you were able to do something that we've been struggling to do ourselves, which is make a distinction between this object, whatever that is, the institute or the training program or whatever, and your own personal individuation process, and privileging your personal process more than the actuality of getting in or not getting in, and taking responsibility for your own violence in public. It's pretty cool.
Great. Oh wait, before we go on, I wanted to also maybe share a little reaction to your comment as well. As you might well imagine, Kellen, that it's not going to be the case that either those of us who are running the program or those of us who would be coming into the program without terrible violence. All of us are drenched in terrible, terrible, unspeakable violence. If I think about the folks that we decide to send out the invitations to versus those we would consider who's more violent? Okay. First of all, the sky is the limit. And no one's merely on the Earth on this matter. Everyone's at least in orbit. It's not past Uranus. It's way out there. This is why we're not kidding around. Why what Doug read, was so careful about the dangerous stuff here. Because there's no way around any gay folk who really seriously get more self-realized to face terrible, unspeakable violence. And you're right to sense that such trying to get at these levels of challenge could also unleash things which could be dangerous to the gay folks attempting to do it, could be very destructive is very, very perceptive. So I also appreciate your struggle to try and be able to see your own issues vis-a-vis your needs as they relate to matters of acting out violence versus being able to psychologically own personal violence. I think that's a crucial question for all of us. In terms of that as to who got picked in the end, so to speak, and who didn't, it was not kind of like you might be imagining. It was like a judgment call in the end. Like I'm alluding around the sense that everyone has such terrible unspeakable personal violence. How do you pick this one versus that one? That's what I was trying to share with all of you. We pictured this at first as we can't take on more than a handful to start this. So someone's got to be and someone's got to not be of those who seem interestedly eligible without having been so much directly approached at first.